time. Hello, everybody. Look good and wide. I'm gonna be ready this time. Oh, yeah. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Generosity Show. This is episode number 4, and I am your host, Jennifer Evans, inspiring you to give, love, and receive your way to a happier and healthier life. So I am so excited about today's guest. His name is Tim Ryan, and he is an expert speaker, a riveting drug speaker. A&E named him the Dope Man, and he's a national thought leader on the opioid epidemic. So I am so excited to have him on the show. You know, on the Generosity Show, really my goal is to talk about important issues that we're dealing with that sometimes people are a little scared to talk about, and open up and be real, as well as highlight good work that people are doing around the world and their impact they're making. And when I say generosity, to me, it's really a state of being. It's a state of, you know, being loving, being and giving to others, but also the way that you receive others. Because, you know, you could be doing good for somebody, but you could be treating them, you know, you could be helping somebody, but you could actually be being rude to them. And so I think we're all kind of victim, or we all kind of do that sometimes, right? Say we're helping our mom or our grandma do something, but we're kind of annoyed. So I want to use the term generosity as a state of being. And so today I'm so excited to have Tim on the show because he's not only doing great work, he has a foundation called A Man in Recovery, you know, but he is also, you know, yeah, he has a foundation called A Man in Recovery, and he is a man in recovery. And so I'm a woman in recovery. And so we have dealt with a lot of the same issues, I'm sure. I know that his rock bottom, I believe, looks a little bit different than mine, but we have many similarities, just like so many of us. Everyone's journey is different, but we're so similar in so many ways. So I'm excited about having Tim on the show. We're going to have a very real, deep conversation about his struggles, his recovery, and now what he's doing to help other people. So I want to thank everybody who's watching. I want to thank PSTV, the Positivity Network, Facebook Live. Thank you, everybody, for watching and supporting. I hope you get a dose of positivity today. So I'm going to read the bio for our speaker, Tim, before I have the pleasure of welcoming him on the show. So Tim Ryan, despite a successful career, heroin stole half of his life and eventually took the life of his own son. But he's dedicated every waking minute since walking out of prison to dealing hope to addicts, their families, and the communities they touch. Tim's mission is to help one addict at a time transform their lives from dope to hope. And today, he is one of the nation's leading experts on the pandemic, delivering riveting, highly practical speeches and workshops to equip and motivate. Tim is the subject of A&E's highly rated show, The Dope Man. He is regularly featured thought leader and speaker in national media, including USA Today, Newsweek, Fox Business, HLN, and many more. He was an invited guest by the U.S. President to the 2016 State of the Union dinner. Well, that had to be cool. And he's a national outreach director for the Transformation Treatment Center, an advisor to rehab.com. And as I said before, he runs a Man in Recovery Foundation to place the uninsured in quality care. Wow. So without further ado, I would like to welcome today's guest, Tim Ryan. Hello, Tim.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm blessed. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're a busy man running all around the nation speaking. So I'm glad I caught you on an off weekend.
Yeah, glad to be here. I'd always make time for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm so excited to be connecting with you. I actually just learned about you and your message from my husband, Josh Berglund, a few weeks ago. And he's like, if you could get this guy on your show, that would be amazing. So as soon as I checked out your stuff, I'm like, wow, this guy's awesome. So
shout out to Josh. Shout out to your husband.
Yes, shout out. He's at work right now, or I would tell him to come over and say, we're living in Beverly Hills in a studio. Okay, so we both have shows. So it's been very challenging where he'll be like, well, I'm doing a show at this time. And I'm like, I'll try to be quiet as I tiptoe around trying to get ready. So
Hey, that's what it's all about, though. You adapt to your situation and you make the best of it.
yeah, we're finally getting to where it's working. So that's good.
Good, 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 good.
So I'd love to talk about you. I kind of want to start off, you started drinking alcohol at the same age I did. It was like 13 or 14. So I'd love to
Yep.
a little bit about, when you started, using drugs and alcohol and why you think that happened and kind of your journey.
That's a great question, and I didn't realize why a lot of it happened. I thought I just liked to drink and do drugs. And I grew up about a half hour south of the Wisconsin border. And as a freshman in high school in 1982, the drinking age was 18 in Wisconsin. My best friend was a senior in high school. We both had blonde hair, blue eyes, 6'1". We looked like twin brothers. So I'd use Randy's ID. And we were up in Wisconsin drinking every weekend. But I like what alcohol did to me. I drank to get drunk. And at 15, the first time I tried cocaine, I was having the drug fronted to me. That was the rest of high school. But I was a kid that struggled with learning disabilities, ADD, dyslexia. I had an older brother that beat me up every day for 8 years, was molested by a female babysitter at 12. Those were all forms of trauma. And until I had heard Dr. Gabor Mate speak in Chicago about 3.5 years ago, I had another epiphany. It's like those were some of the factors that really pushed me to keep staying altered all the time. I was the guy that always wore the mask. I'm great. I'm great. I was always great when I was struggling, but I couldn't put my hand up and ask for help. And out of high school, I went down to college in Louisiana because they had something called open admission. So if you pay the bill, you can go to college. I went down to Northeast Louisiana University because the only thing I was good at was water skiing. From 14 to 21, I was one of the top ranked barefoot water skiers in the country. I show skied, I 3 events skied, I slalom trick jumped, and I went to get on the water ski team. I never got on the team, started being told you're a liability. And in college, I got into ecstasy, mushrooms, acid, more cocaine. I had a bumper sticker on the back of my 78 Ford Fairmont that said "In Search of the Eternal Buzz." And I was always searching through happiness through drugs and alcohol when in hindsight, they caused all my problems. And, kicked out of college, more cocaine, smoking cocaine. And at 21 years old was my first time I checked myself into drug treatment. And I can remember a guy coming in to speak, and he looked at all the clients and he said, "One of you will be sober in a year and a third of you will be dead." And when I went into treatment, I wanted to quit doing drugs. I want to figure out how to drink like a normal person.
And we are.
That was my thinking. And that guy said, don't drink, get a sponsor, work the steps, go to meetings. And that's what I did. But I never got a sponsor. I like to play my own God and sponsor myself. And it was constant in and out, in and out. And then the journey continued. Want me to keep going with the journey?
Well, I'd like to, no, thanks for pausing for a sec. Cause I want to talk about, when you said you started drinking because of some of the trauma in your life. And I have, just want to share that I had the same experience. I had, molestation, and I was always pretending things were okay. I didn't really know they weren't, to be honest. Right. Cause I think kind of like told, yeah, everything's fine. I didn't even know I was keeping a secret. And I hear sometimes people say like, you're sicker, your secrets keep you sick, so I was always I think I was in my head so much. And I think that so many people get into using drugs and alcohol and toxic behaviors because of trauma in childhood, and I didn't realize either that until I got sober, why I actually started using. So I think one of my goals in the future is to help, teens, that are in that age, maybe, helping them before they get to that point. Because everyone has trauma. I think one of the things I was traumatized with was actually, I grew up and I was Catholic and I lived by a lot of Mormons. And I have a lot of Mormon friends, so I'm not saying anything negative. But I remember a time when I was about 6 years old, we were in a group
and they all asked me to do like the sign of the cross, right? And they were making fun of me. And so I remember that was even a traumatic experience that I didn't feel good enough, and I felt a little bit shameful. So I think we all go through it, and it's just, you know, how we handle it and process it. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing, you know, your journey into rehab. So you put yourself into rehab at 21, correct?
Yeah, the cat was out of the bag. I was dealing cocaine with another guy, and we were smoking a lot, and I started stealing checks from my mom's company account, and I'd cash them at my buddy's gas station. And gratefully, my friend called my mom and said, look, you know, you do know Tim has a cocaine problem because he keeps cashing $400 checks out of your business account here. And the crazy thing is, I'd went to the treatment center on my own a week prior. I sat in on a group, and they were trying to get a hold of my parents. They couldn't get a hold of them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here. And I ended up there a week later. But, you know, I liked treatment, and I liked being sober. And I started a asphalt seal coating business, and started a water ski school, and started competing in water skiing, and won Illinois State and Wisconsin State and Michigan State. And then at the regionals, I blew out some disc in my lower back, and my career was over. And self-medicate. Here's some Vicodin. I didn't like the pills then, and right back to smoking weed. As soon as I started smoking weed, I was right back to drinking and doing cocaine like I never stopped. And then I tried the relocation, you know, moved to Texas, get away, and more trouble. And I stumbled into, my MO was always go back to meetings. You know, that was my safe spot. And I met some guys marketing cable television door to door. We traveled the country for a year. I went and started my own company and was very successful. I made my first million at 22 years old, but I went right back to drinking and doing drugs and lost it by 23. And 60 families were out of work because of me. But I always justified in my head, once I make money, I can drink and use like a normal person, and buried that and got into the recruiting space as a headhunter. And I told the guy he was 7 years sober. I told him I was 2, and he said, you're hired. You know, I could quote the big book like the back of my hand. I had no concept what live in recovery was. And of course, back to making money. A year later, I went to work for a management consulting firm in Chicago. I'm now 26. And I'm making a lot of money. I had, you know, a Harley, a custom ski boat, a new Jeep. But every night I'm with myself, by myself, crying to myself, saying I can't stop drinking and doing cocaine. And my ego got through the roof because I was one of the highest paid people in the company. Everybody I'm hiring has MBAs and PhDs. And I'm the guy at the 1.4 grade average who got the 11 on his ACT, making more money than all these saps. And that's where I met my future wife. And I can remember I walked into work one day, and there's this lady sitting behind the front desk. She had a peach outfit on, and I'm like, hey, Peachy, how are you? And she said, good. I said, who are you? She said, I'm Shannon Hoban, the new receptionist. Who are you? And I kind of puffed my chest up. Well, I'm Tim Ryan, the director of recruiting. And she said, oh, you're the jerk that didn't want to hire me. I said, what are you talking about? She said, weren't you given my resume a month ago? Weren't you looking to hire an assistant? I'm like, you're the banker lady, aren't you? She said, yeah. I said, I don't like bankers. I never asked you out, never called you in for an interview. But a couple weeks later, the other recruiter and I took her down to the bar for a few drinks. She had 2 beers, went to the bathroom, came out. I gave her a kiss. I said, you're my new girlfriend. And she said, I like that, but I have one question to ask you. Do you do drugs? No. Of course, everything that came out of my mouth was a lie. And I said, why would you ask me if I do drugs? And she said, I have a 3-year-old son by the name of Nicholas, whose father's an addict, who abandoned us. I want nothing to do with anyone that does drugs. I said, I don't do them. She said, great, let's go on another date. She went home to Naperville. I went to Chicago, bought a 1/4 ounce cocaine. So everything that came out of my mouth was a lie. We started dating. 6 months later, she's pregnant. I dragged her to the courthouse. I married her. I adopted Nick. Max came along. 9 months after Max was born, she was pregnant with Tanner. Tanner came along 9 months after Tanner was born. She was pregnant with Abby. Yeah. One thing I was good at was making babies. That was the easy part. Yeah. Taking care of them was a different concept. But what happened?
Are you still married to Shannon?
No, we were together 18 years. I'll get to my journey where she left me, but she's my dear friend. I'm very fortunate there. I had been up doing cocaine for a couple days, passed out. She's pregnant with Tanner. Max is 14 months old and Nick is 5. And Max was crawling towards my home office, and I put him in his bedroom, and I opened the door, and there's cocaine all over the office floor. If he would have put one of those rocks in his mouth, it would have killed him. So back to meetings. This time I made it 14 months clean, kind of got a sponsor, kind of worked the steps, started another business, making money, building a beautiful house in the suburbs. And I met a guy at a meeting, asked me to take him to Chicago a couple weeks later to move out of his apartment. We're moving him out. His roommate pops out. What are you doing here? So I'm moving out. Joel, what are you doing? Heroin. You want to do some? Sure. And I tried one bag of heroin. That one bag of heroin was what I thought I was looking for. It ultimately took me down another 12 years of hell and destruction. A lot of consequences. I've overdosed on heroin 8 times, been clinically dead 3, 10 times in and out of jail, 2 times in prison, lost my license, driving on revokes, and things really started to get out of control. But I always worked. I always made money. I always functioned.
Yeah.
In 2008, I was sent to prison for the first time for 4 driving on revokes in a year. And they give you a year, but you do 61 days, you get out. And my wife sat me down and she said, Tim, I applied for a scholarship to go to nursing school. And I said, you don't need to work, Shannon. I make plenty of money. She said, the way you're living, you're going to end up in 2 places. You're going to end up dead or in prison. And we have 4 kids to take care of, and I can't rely on you. She was right. I went back to the technology space, started another search firm, made a bunch of money, went right back to using. She graduated 3 years, top of her class, while dealing with me, working full-time, raising our kids. I didn't even go to her graduation. You know, I was dope sick. December 16th of 2010, I overdosed. Go ahead.
Does dope sick mean like hung over from doing dope for days and where you can't?
No, when you don't have opiates, it's like having the flu times 1,000. You are defecating, you're vomiting yourself. You think 5 hours is went by, 5 minutes is went by, and this can last 3 to 5 to 2 weeks.
Wow.
It's hell on earth, and that's why people have such a hard time getting clean, because they go back to using just to take the sick off. It's not like I was out trying to get high, but my habit had gotten, I had a $500 a day heroin habit. I just wanted to feel normal.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. And anyhow, I overdosed while driving. I hit 2 cars. I put 4 people in the hospital, one being a 9-month-old baby. And I don't remember a thing because I was dead on the scene. They had to use 5 shots of Narcan to bring me back. Spent a week in jail, got out, went back to using. Got the best lawyer, said, let's beat this. And my thinking is they didn't get blood or urine, so I'm going to beat it. It's my 3rd DUI, my 5th driving on revoke. They found the spoon and syringe, but that's how delusional I was. I knew I was going back to prison. It was just a matter of how long. And my lawyer said, Tim, we're not beating anything. I got to a point where I wanted to kill myself, but I was also raised Catholic. So if there's a heaven, hell, a purgatory, I didn't want to go there, so I went back to using. 3 months into fighting my case, now all my kids know I'm a heroin addict. And I'm taking a hot bath because I'm really sick. And my 17-year-old son, Nick, comes in the bathroom. And with Nick, I was not a father. I was a friend of my son. I let him and his buddies drink and smoke weed in the basement. And Nick comes in, he said, what's wrong, Pops? I said, what do you think, you idiot? I'm dope sick. He said, not anymore, Dad. Today's your lucky day. And my son threw 2 bags of heroin on the counter. I got out of the tub and I did them, and I felt good instantly. And I went in Nick's room. I said, Nick, what the hell are you doing? He said, don't worry, Dad. I'm just selling a little bit. I said, Nick, you need to shut this down immediately. You know what this drug has done to me. And my son looked right at me and said, well, Dad, you're a successful drug addict. And I said, why would you say that? Well, we got a nice house. You have an office in the Wrigley building. You make a good living. 3 months later, I found out my son was doing heroin, and we started using heroin together. That's where this disease takes you. That's how my son and I bonded, getting high together. Ultimately, on December 16th October 30th of 2012, I was sentenced to 7 years in prison. When I walked into prison the second time, I weighed 158 pounds. I was skin and bone. I was walking death. I was profusely sick for 2 weeks, and that's where I had my aha moment. I said, God, please take away this obsession and compulsion to use, and I swear I'll turn my will and life over to you, and please let me get into Sheridan Prison. And the next day I was transferred to Sheridan. In Illinois, there's 28 prisons. There's 2 therapeutic drug treatment programs, and by the grace of God, I get into one. But I left my wife with nothing, a house in foreclosure, and our oldest son in active addiction. My worst fear in prison was my son was going to die. And I think he had OD'd 1 or 2 more times, was in treatment again. But in prison, all I did was recovery. My former cellmate was a Chicago gang chief. And 18 hours a day in the cell, we studied the big book, the NA basic text, the Bible. We read hundreds of books. We'd do group 3 hours a day, 5 days a week in the day room. At night, Perk and I'd have a 12-step based meeting. We'd walk the yard. I didn't get a TV. I wasn't there to do push-ups for noodles. I was there to change. My wife brought 2 of our kids to visit every 2 weeks. In prison, our house was lost in foreclosure, displaced my wife and 4 kids. They had to change schools, move to grandma's. My wife divorced me in prison, but she still came to see me every 2 weeks. I ended up doing 13 and a half months. Actually, tomorrow, December 16th, your phone's ringing. Tomorrow, December 16th, will be 5 years ago tomorrow that I walked out of the Illinois Department of Corrections.
Wow.
When I walked out of there, I had done 13 and a half months in there. It's the first time in my life I was 13 and a half months clean and sober. And Shannon picked me up and took me to a little townhouse in downtown Naperville. Her and my mom had rented for me. All our furniture she had moved in, and all my kids came over that night. Nick, Max, Tanner, Abby. We had dinner. And that's the last time I was together with my former wife and 4 kids as a family. I plugged into recovery, ultimately set up my foundation, a Man in Recovery Foundation, started some support groups. And are you there? Did you disappear? Are you there? Oh, no. We're gone. You are there. Where'd you go?
I froze. I had to reset myself. I could still hear you the whole time.
Okay. So, at 19 months sober, my son Nick was in treatment for the 5th or sixth time. And I went to visit Nick. He's now 20. He's like, Dad, we got such a crazy story. We used to get high together.
Yeah.
I want to do what you do, and I want to help people, and think of me and you speaking in schools. And I'm like, Nick, I'd love it, but you got to get sober. 30 days out of treatment, he's back in jail. Did 45 days, got out. Shannon picked him up, took him to lunch, fed him, and said, Nick, we're done. You're not coming to my house. You're not coming to Dad's, because all you do is lie, cheat, and steal. And 2 days later, August 1st, of 2014, Shannon called me at 6 a.m. and said, Nick overdosed. I'm coming to get you. We shot to the hospital, ran into the emergency room. Tim and Shannon Ryan here to see our son, Nick. He overdosed, and 30 seconds later, the chaplain walked out. I knew my son was dead. My son, Nick, died on my 21-month sobriety date. And I'll ask people, what was my next thought? And they'll say, you wanted to get high. No, my next thought was I'll be at 6 o'clock 12-step meeting that night, and that's what I did. Nick's passing it solidified what I do today. The next day in the newspaper, they were running a big article on me for a Narcan training event I was doing. And after we left the hospital, I can remember the reporter calling and saying, I heard about Nick, I'm sorry, and we're going to cancel the article. And I said, no, you're not. She said, what are you talking about? I said, if my son's friends had Narcan, chances are he'd be alive. So I said, we're going to lay Nick to rest Wednesday, and Thursday I'm going on with the Narcan training event. And it had said anti-heroin crusader loses son to overdose. And I can also remember in the emergency room, Shannon is, we're there over our deceased child. I'll never forget that scream. She said, I hate God. Blank God, he didn't answer our prayers. And I said, Shannon, what I'm going to say is going to sting, but you need to listen to me. I said, maybe God did answer our prayers. It's just not the answer we're looking for. 2 weeks later, we had lunch, and Shannon looked me right in the eyes, and she said, Tim Ryan, for once in my life, I'm behind you 1,000%. She said, I want you to run your foundation. I want you to help people, run your support groups. I don't want any mother going through what I went through. Heroin took you, my husband, our home, and my firstborn child. She said, I also thought about what you said in the emergency room about God. She said, I truly believe God put Nick and I in your life for a reason. Had you go through your struggles, Nick go through his, for Nick to pass on to set the stage for what you're going to do next. And I'm just getting started. And out of prison, the first 12-step meeting I was at, I met my future wife. She was married, kind of 13th-stepped her. No.
I've been 13th step before, but I didn't get married to that person.
So, and God's got a funny sense of humor. And even in recovery, I've been through a lot, because Kirsten ended up leaving her husband, and they were on the outs, and moved in with me. And then I heard those famous words again, I'm pregnant. I said, you got to be, I'm 46 years old. It's not mine. Yes, it is. And then our daughter, Mackenzie, was born. And when Nick died, his best friend Adam moved in with me, who unfortunately started using heroin with Nick and I. He'd been part of our family since he was 12, always at our house. Adam was in a sober home, and he ended up moving in with me and Kirsten and my younger son, Tanner. And Adam plugged into recovery. 10 months sober, I shipped him and his girlfriend to Florida to work for the treatment center I was working for, because 5 months later, I was opening an offshoot in Naperville, where we live. Mackenzie's 4 months old. My now current wife attempted suicide. They thought it was postpartum depression. So I got her to a treatment center in Florida. I need a nanny because I'm traveling, I'm speaking. So my nanny was my former cellmate, Big Perk, former gang chief. And people are like, are you nuts? I'm like, I spent 13 months in a cell with this man. I trust him more than anyone. Adam came back with his girlfriend, and 2 weeks later, I found Adam dead with a needle in his arm.
Wow.
So I basically feel like I lost two of my kids a year apart. I had to fly Kirsten back for the wake, 36 hours back to treatment. Wow. She came back, a couple more suicide attempts. But what we found out was she is undiagnosed bipolar. It wasn't postpartum depression. So today she sees a therapist, has a psychiatrist, and we have a really good life. But she'll know, hey, I got to go do blood work. I feel my lithium levels are off. But these are just some of the things that have happened in recovery. You know, I've buried 140 people. We've assisted over probably 4,000 plus into treatment in 4.5 years. And I have this beautiful daughter, Mackenzie, who's a little over 3. So God called one home and blessed me with my little pumpkin. So I've got a good life today, you know. That's kind of that in a nutshell.
Well, it's beautiful. That was so much. I have a lot of questions.
Suit the thrill.
How long have you been sober now?
November 1st, I was 6 years sober.
Okay, congratulations.
So what is this? 6 years, a month, and 15 days, if you're counting.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
For what you're doing. And thank you for being so open about your story. You know, it's interesting because I resonate with you very much to the back where I'm coming up on, you know, January 7th will be my 2 years with no alcohol.
Awesome.
I used to say alcohol and drugs. I haven't been working my program as much, and I started smoking weed again a few weeks back, and smoked for a couple weeks, stopped on Sunday, didn't smoke the whole week, and then I smoked last night. I'm being very candid with everybody.
That's okay.
everyone's journey of recovery is different, and none of us are perfect. So I'm trying to figure out if I can moderate marijuana right now, and that's my, it could be my addict brain, and I don't know if I can, but that's kind of where I'm at this point,
So what I would ask you, as I would ask anyone, if you're truly an alcoholic, why do you need to alter your mind in the first place? What is the weed doing for you? And well, I've got anxiety, panic, depression. Well, it causes depression. But on the flip side, there's also the variable of harm reduction. I would much rather see people smoking weed than drinking alcohol, shooting heroin, smoking meth, whatever. I know for me, if weed won't cut it, I'll smoke for a while, but I'll ultimately go back to my drug of choice. So to each his own. You got a good life. Do what works for you. And recovery is different for different people. Who am I to tell you that you have to live a 100% abstinence-based lifestyle? That's not for me to do. And I meet people where they're at. And if I can get you from this point to here and you can go here and here, more power to you. If you got a productive life, do what works for you.
And I guess I'm just being open because I'm trying to find that, right? I was completely with nothing. Well, I say nothing, but I'd actually, I'd actually used psychedelic mushrooms about a year ago. And
how was that? I miss mushrooms.
I know. Well, I used to do it as a partying thing, right? But I did this sobriety when I was going through a very big depression. And it actually really helped me. I had a healing experience where I did it it wasn't like I was drinking. I did it where someone facilitated it. And I was, laying down, being very quiet till it started hitting me. And I went on this hysterical laughing thing where I couldn't stop. But then I went into an intense sobbing, like nothing has ever done for me before. And I was sobbing, snot coming out of my mouth. And I bet the neighbors could hear what was going on. It was like wailing. And what happened was I felt like I was crying for all the sadness in me from childhood and things, and then for my family. And then I felt like I was grieving for the world. I let out so much sadness in me, and it really made me feel lighter. So I want to talk about these things openly because I don't have all the answers. I know that I would probably, staying 100% sober, no weed, no anything, I'll probably be the most productive, right? But I feel like when I go to smoke weed, I don't do it. It's more like I want to up my creative level. Like I want to get to a different place where I can be creative and write. But I don't know if I can moderate, Tim. So I'll have to stay in contact with you and let you know.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not going to go back to where it was an obsession. And it was. I am an alcoholic. Sometimes some of my family and friends will be like, "You're not really an alcoholic, are you?" Like, I used to party because I could always maintain a job like you, right? You could always,
sure.
always like taking pills, smoking, I was snorting cocaine. I was doing all that on weekends and always had a job. But why I stopped smoking weed was because of that obsession of the mind, like I would be halfway through the day and I'd be thinking, God, I just want to smoke right now. Or you and I would be on this thing right now and I'd be like, I just wish I was high right now. And I don't want to go back to that lifestyle. But it's always a slippery slope, though, like you said. So
it is. But back to the magic mushrooms and the psilocybin. I read a lot. I do a lot of studying and follow data, and there's a lot of evidence out there that it works for people with depression and PTSD. And so we haven't even come this close to tapping what's going on in the mind and everything, and everyone's different. And I'm not saying, hey, everyone go, if you're depressed, eat magic mushrooms, but I gotta say, I did hallucinogenics probably 1,000 times. Whether it was acid, I'd eat mushrooms and go to work. But I know for me, I do it, I'll be drinking. So in all the things for Tim Ryan, I was searching through drugs and alcohol. I found for me, working a program, doing everything else I do. But people will ask me, do you still go to meetings? Yeah, I go to a couple meetings a week. Still got a sponsor, always sponsor at least one alcoholic because that's what I am. Because my career working for a transformations treatment center, running my foundation, Tim Ryan speaking all over, that's my career. That has nothing to do with my recovery. And
Yeah.
people get it twisted, especially in this space. Somebody gets sober, they become a Facebook all-star, and they want to save the world, but they don't take care of themselves, and they relapse and they die. And you know, it's just got to keep balance, however that looks. You know, I like speaking, I like traveling, and it works well with my marriage. I think if I was home every day, one of us, we wouldn't be around.
To understand that. And I think, you know, speaking about it also helps you stay accountable, right? Because other people are counting on you too, you know, and that's why I was speaking about my recovery first. And I feel like I just want to be honest with people because so many people are struggling and it's not perfect and it's difficult. But I went to a meeting today actually, and there was a guy, you know, who had been in prison for 30 years and he just got out 2 months ago.
Wow.
And that was, you know, to see him there and that he had done what you did in prison was host meetings. And honestly, you know, AA, you know, not to say too much because I know there's traditions and things, but it saved my life, you know, and I think that, and it led me to my relationship to really finding a relationship with God and Christ because, you know, I never knew Jesus until after I went through AA and then I started questioning and asking things. So I love the program and 12 steps, but I want to also know, what have you done, you know, since the 12 steps, like other things that have helped you in your recovery? Like is meditation, is there working out, is there, you know, affirmations, or what else has helped you heal in your journey?
Wow, I think one thing that really helps me is what I do. When I'm doing speaking events, and I do high schools, colleges, corporations, community forums, but I'm opening that wound every time I speak. And depending on the venue, I can feel getting emotional and I'll get silent for a few minutes, but I don't take anything for granted anymore. You know, I try to meditate. It lasts about 2 minutes. I get up, I hit my knees, I read my 3 meditation books, but I surround myself with people I can constantly learn from, not just in recovery, you know, kind of some spiritual advisors. I've got a couple church pastor friends, business associates, and people that are in long-term recovery, and I keep my circle very small. And the reason I do that, I don't like to get hurt. Whether I'm this big, yeah, whatever, I still got feelings and emotions. And I'm sick of watching people die. But I cherish every day. You know, when I see this little girl I have, and yesterday my 17-year-old daughter graduates high school Monday, 6 months early. She's already accepted to college. So I went and bought her a really nice used Cadillac yesterday. And I'm able to do those things today. And it's not, I financed a car, I didn't pay cash, but all the hell I put that little girl through, the least I can do is get her a nice car and love her and support her. My 20-year-old son works full-time with me. I haven't had a driver's license in 18 years. So Max is not only my driver, he videotapes, he films. We just did a TV interview together. I have him speak. My 19-year-old son's in welding school. I have 3 stepkids. Family's everything to me. You know, I'm blessed, but do I go to church? Occasionally. God, I don't know if there's any one answer, you know.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I agree there's not one answer, but I saw on your website that you talk about some rules to live by that work for you in recovery. Would you mind sharing those?
No, you know, you've got to have rules. You've got to have boundaries. And for me, you know, my recovery has got to be number one. And when I got out of prison, I sat down, I told my kids and Shannon at the time, I said, look, my relationship with God in recovery come before everything. And my son Max is 20 will say, you know, I was mad at my dad for saying that, but now I see that he put his recovery number one and everything fell into place. But
Yeah.
I never forget where I came from. And my whole life today is about giving back. I'll ask people, what's your dash, or what's your legacy going to be, or what's it going to read on your tombstone? And I don't want it to read that Tim was the life of the party. He had an addictive personality. He did too much cocaine. He got into heroin. He isolated. He neglected his family, and one of his kids died, and he's a piece of whatever. You know, anyone can turn their life around anytime. And that's a choice. All you got to do is put your hand up and ask for help. And I'm still just getting started, but you know, you got to have respect. You got to have respect for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, for your God, and have integrity and honesty, and don't wear the masks. You know, be vulnerable, and just like you did. Hey, you know what? I smoked weed last night. I love you. I thank you for that honesty. We need more people to drop the mask. And hey, I'm great. I'll tell you when I'm not great. You know, I struggle with things a lot, but I take a step back, and you know, I didn't book any speaking events for the next month purposely because I need to spend some time. We're going up to my parents tomorrow, and family is so important to me now because I neglected them for so long.
That's really good. I want to ask you about something. I, you know, went into the program and did it regularly for about a year. And then I took a personal development course called the Landmark Forum. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Well, it's just about, you know, letting go of old stories we're telling ourselves and really being more present. And what came out of that for me was like, I got really uncomfortable with saying like, I am an alcoholic or I am an addict, because, you know, those words are so powerful, the I am. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I want to go to, you know, the meetings and participate. But again, I also feel like, am I limiting myself by saying those words?
So there's all this, we've got to change the verbiage. It's a substance misuse disorder, and the chicken or the egg. Is it a choice? Is it a disease? Who gives a shit? I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm Tim Ryan. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and drug addict, sober by the grace of God and the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, I don't get hung up on things, but some people do. And so many people also that struggle with addiction have underlying mental health that's not being addressed. And it's so complex. But on the flip side, I'm reading something on Facebook yesterday that Santa now needs to be gender neutral, and we need female Santas. And some of this stuff is just over the top. I'm sick of burying people. You call yourself what you want, do what you do. I'll love you and I'll support you 1,000%. I just won't co-sign your BS. But yeah, you know, I think too many people get hung up on it. You know, we need to quit worrying about the words, and let's find more solutions to help the people that don't have resources, that don't have insurance. I had a good friend of mine, Dave, call me this morning from Southern Illinois, and Dave's son passed away about a month ago. And he said, Tim, I'm trying to help this kid. He's on 150 milligrams of methadone. He has state insurance. Where can I go with him? I said, you can't. I said, nowhere in Illinois will they detox that kid. I said, at 150 milligrams, I know 2 places in the country with good insurance I could put him in. I said, he's going to have to wean down. And he said he started to, and his probation officer told him he needs to go up. See, that's a hole in the system. Why is a probation officer telling someone what they need to put in their body and what they don't? There's so many other facets, and I'm the guy that speaks the truth, whether you like it or not. I don't care. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to quit burying people. And we need to get so many more solutions in instead of all this kumbaya BS. You know, I thought I'd start this foundation and save the world. And I love animals. I have a rescue pit bull, but people would rather donate money to homeless cats and dogs than they would people struggling with substance abuse or mental health. It's heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
That's, you know, I can get long-winded, but.
Are you doing lobbying as part of your efforts to change some of these laws?
Not really, because like, do you know Ryan Hampton out in California? I'll get you hooked
No.
up with Ryan. And you had asked about, I went out, Ryan Hampton and Anna David. They're both in your backyard. I'll get you hooked up with both of them. Ryan just wrote a book called The American Fix on his perspective of what's wrong with the whole country's treatment, the opiate epidemic. Anna's published a number of books, New York Times selling author, long-term recovery. They put on a retreat right on Vine and Sunset in a kind of a hostel.
Cool.
But we had how to breathe properly classes, how to meditate.
Yeah, okay.
And boy, did I learned a lot from that. But it's also what else I do, Jennifer, is I connect people. I will make sure I hook you up with these two because they're two of my mentors in what I do. And I cut a lot of people out, not cut them out. I only roll with people that I can learn from, that are part of the solution. And Ryan's more on the lobbying and the laws and out in California, the patient brokering and the unregulated sober homes. He's instrumental in all that.
Okay,
So
cool.
I stay in my lane. I speak. I obviously work for a center. I run my foundation, and I guide and direct people into treatment with no insurance, state insurance, normal insurance, and I know how to maneuver the system and get people help anywhere in the country.
Well, that's great. Now I know where to go, or anyone watching the show, if
Absolutely.
they needs to get into treatment, they can contact you. So yeah, I would love those connections because I know that, you know, staying sober, helping other people, and you know, so I get how important that is, and I would love to see if there's anything I could do to help them and support them.
Yeah,
So,
and I also think that back to the 12 steps, I think the book needs to, a lot of things need to be changed and rewritten, you know, for where we are today. When the big book was wrote, people were hiding. They didn't want people to know. And, you know, 75, 76, things have changed drastically. We need to rewrite some things and look at it differently to hit this head on.
It was a secret, and it's like I don't care, because I would tell people like, yeah, I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I remember I didn't want to go in so bad, and I got a sponsor, and she's like, I want you to go to a meeting every day for a week, and I was like, fuck that, you know. And I didn't. I went to one meeting, and then she was like, I told you, you know, you need to go every day. So I said, she's like, do you really want this? And I was like, yes, you know. And so I said, all right, I'll do it. And by the fourth day, I mean, something had changed into me. So, you know, they say go to a meeting until you want to go, until you enjoy it. And that happens to people
Amen.
that actually do it. But my point was, like, I wanted to shout from a rooftop, like, I'm in AA, like, you know, I'm excited about it. And most people really don't care. I mean, there was one time last year when I, you know, have a friend that was in the program, and I was like, oh yeah, we go to AA together. And she pulled me aside later and was like, you know, you broke a tradition I don't tell people. And I felt really bad, and I didn't even realize that I did it. But so that's why I agree. It's like, you know, does it need to be like this secret society?
So I did a TEDx talk. You can look it up, TEDx Naperville, Tim Ryan. And my whole TED talk was on the stigma, the shame, but, you know, we've got 25 million people in long-term recovery that hide in the rooms of a 12-step based program. Why, if we had more people coming out and saying, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I'm a plumber, I'm an airline pilot, and be proud to be sober, I don't think we'd have so many of these things going on today. We got to quit hiding. I'm proud to be sober. Recovery gave me the damn life I have today. Everything I was searching for in active addiction for 35, 38 years, for me, was through the 12 steps, God, and helping other people. But I had to shut my mouth, and I had to get humble, and I had to listen and learn. I had to work a program, and, you know, I put that first. I don't know. I'm all over the fucking place.
Great. I have a question for you, because, right, I'm back in the meeting today, and I've been, like you said, trying to self-sponsor myself for about a year, right? And I haven't wanted to go back, because I know it's a big commitment, right? When you have to be accountable for someone. And I was thinking in my head today, like, what really are the benefits of, like, when they say, you know, it works if you work it, rework the steps, like, why in your opinion, why at my point right now would it be beneficial to like get a new sponsor and rework the steps?
Let me ask you, have you ever truly worked the steps?
Yes.
Have you sponsored other people?
Yes.
The whole reason you go through a 12-step based program, in my opinion, is so you can take somebody else through the steps. That's a miracle. It's giving away what was so freely given to you. But a lot of times I half-assed it. I wasn't open, honest, and willing. On my 4th step, I kept things back. And this last time, man, I put it all out there. And that anvil fell off my shoulder. And, you know, I looked at the guy that was 20 years sober. I said, I want what you have. And he said, are you willing to take some guidance and direction? And I went through it. And even if you're not in recovery, if people worked a 12-step based program, this would be a much better society today.
A friend of mine in Austin, Texas wrote People's Anonymous, you know, based off of, because it works for anything, overeating.
Absolutely.
But okay, so that, you know, because I've been really thinking about getting a new sponsor, and I like what you just said. You reminded me that some of the joy of it is seeing, because I think I just had one sponsee, but I told her when I did mushrooms, because I told my sponsor and she fired me because she's like, I believe in complete sobriety. If you're not going to say that you went out and restart your sobriety date, like, I'm not going to sponsor you. And I'm like, okay, well then that was the end of my sponsor, right? Because I want to do it my way. But again, I felt like it was helpful to my healing. So whatever, that's another story.
Well, but no, it's not. Stop right there, because you get a lot of people that, my wife was 3.5 years sober, and due to her bipolar, had drank some Robitussin. Well, it made her feel good, so she ended up drinking a bottle or two.
Yeah.
And considered that a relapse and restarted. And my buddy Ryan Hampton was here. He's like, hold on, you can't throw all that time away, you know, and people get too hung up on this, you know.
I agree. Like, I went to the meeting the other day and was like, I'm on day 1. And then I sat down because I smoked weed, and some guy next to me was like, you just smoked weed. He's like, you're pretty honest. And I was like,
yeah.
I was thinking, you know what? Like, I don't really care about time. It's just about like how I'm doing. Because some people get so caught up, like, I had 5 years, I went out, you know, and you went right back. It's like all those 5 years are not wasted.
Right. And you learned a lot, and just regroup. What did you miss? What do you need to change? And that's why I got people outside of recovery, you know, that I surround myself with. And I mean, I can tell you right now, I don't think I'll ever pick up a drink or a drug again. I wouldn't. I've got too much happiness, too much inner peace. I mean, I blew out my back a year and a half ago, and the worst pain ever. I had to walk with the back brace, a cane. It was a month before I can get an epidural shot. Just wasn't my cup of tea, you know. I don't want to unleash that monster, but I don't get hung up on this stuff. You know, if your life is better and you went from drinking and doing heroin or meth and you're smoking weed, I don't care. Do it. Do what works for you. You know, are you?
I guess it's just finding a sponsor right now that would be okay with where I'm at, which is like, I'm not drinking, you know, and I'm, you know, seeing if I can moderate marijuana. If I can't, then, you know, I'll stop. But I mean, it's something that I'm choosing to do. I don't know if, like, because a lot of people will say, like, you need to be 100%, like, sober means everything, you know. So that's where I'm at right now. But last week I was tempted to drink for the first time in a long time, and thank God I didn't. You know, so
So I think you need to truly do some soul searching for yourself. Get honest with yourself. I mean, if I could do drugs and drink without repercussions, I'd do it in a second. I liked drinking. I liked being altered. It was the consequences I didn't like. And I didn't know how to stop. I can't go out and have 2 beers. Who does it? I'm going to have 6 beers, 6 shots. We're doing vodka. Then I'll get some hookers and some blow and some heroin, and all craziness happens. But
yeah, that's familiar with me. Like, when my friends and family say, "Are you really alcoholic?" I made this list this summer. It's pretty funny, and I was like, "You might be an alcoholic if you get kicked out of the casino for public intoxication." Like, okay, you know. And there was like this huge list, and it's like, yeah, I know I could have a drink or 2 here and there, but a couple months down the line, I'm gonna have a bang out night where I do it exactly what you said, you know, cocaine, the whole thing. and then wake up next to someone I don't know and feel regret, or I could drink and drive. I could potentially kill someone. So I know that like alcohol is toxic, for me, for sure.
Right. And I don't have thoughts of using or drinking anymore. I don't obsess, and it's just not an option for me.
Mm-hmm.
But different people are different, so I don't know. Do what works for you.
I've kind of been using you as my counselor a little bit, so thank you. But I needed to talk through with someone that, understands, addiction.
Well, there's people that go to AA or NA that are on Suboxone or methadone. They're mind altering. They're not doing heroin or opiates anymore. And, you're not sober. Yeah, you are. I'm sick and tired of people. If you consider yourself sober, you're sober, whether you smoke weed or not. Who am I to tell you what to do? There's too many Nazis out there that want to dictate, and they can all kick rocks with no shoes. I could. That's the way I look at it. I don't. I just don't. I meet people where they're at. I meet them where they're at.
You have to find what works for you. I mean, your biggest thing is helping people stay alive, and you're focused on opiates, right? Opioids. Is that what you say?
I help anyone. I mean, alcoholic, cocaine, crack, pills, heroin. But I've done a lot in the opiate space because that's what took me down, and ultimately took me down and killed my son and a number of friends. And there's so much uneducation out there. So much more needs to be done. I mean, we're just on the tip. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better.
Well, I agree with what you said about many people that are addicts have mental health issues, that are, because I myself still am not really quite sure. I've struggled with addiction and anxiety. My mom wants me to go to a psychiatrist and get diagnosed because she says I change my mind and make these drastic decisions and things. And I am an entrepreneur, so I'm a little bit riskier. So I don't know if it's like my entrepreneurship and going for my dream that makes her uncomfortable, but I know I struggle with mental health issues. And I think, I realize that's what so many people are trying to do, is just like quiet their mind or feel better when they're doing drugs and alcohol, right? But
and like Gabor Mate, when I'm done or go to YouTube and watch Gabor Mate Addiction, and he basically has been working with people that struggle with addiction for 40 years out of Vancouver, British Columbia. And when he meets with someone struggling, he doesn't ask why the addiction, he asks why the pain. He said, forget the choices and disease. It all has to do with trauma and mental health and all that. But what happens is a lot of people that go to get help, my wife included, when she got sober, she went to a 12-step based program. But she was also using it for mental health and having people that are sober trying to guide and direct her. No, mental health is this, sobriety is this. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to get help, a lot of people need to get help for the alcohol or the drugs, but then the underlying mental health or trauma issues. Mm-hmm. And it's a friggin' dance, and it's not one size fits all. And
right, because I had people telling me first in the program, like, you shouldn't be taking antidepressants, this and that, because you're not sober. I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, some people need it. And I've gone on and off, antidepressants, anxiety medication. I'm on it now because this is what's working for me and helping me manage and feel good. So I agree. There is no one size fits all. You just really have to figure out what works best for you. And sometimes it takes time.
It does. And I mean, my wife and I were talking last night, and she's like, what do you think about CBD oils? And I said, they're good. They work. They help.
Yeah, I mean, my husband Josh uses it because he has borderline personality disorder. He struggles with mental health, and that really helps him, as well as marijuana, so.
Absolutely. And you can't be the horse wish. We got to take the blinders off, and we got to look at what's working and follow the data. And do I think 14-year-old kids should be smoking this high grade weed every day? No. Their brains aren't even developed, but a grown adult can make adult decisions, but too many people today are followers. They're not leaders. They worry about what other people think too much. And as I tell people, my neighbors don't pay my bills. My people, my community, I pay them. And I'm going to talk with my wife or whoever for guidance and direction and go. And if it doesn't work, okay, change it, you know?
I like what you said about just keeping that circle of mentorship small and strong, because that's what I've learned is I don't want so many opinions, because I want people who have what I want and that have done what I want to do.
Bingo. Bingo. It's as simple as that. You know, on Facebook, I started unfriending and deleting a lot of people because they're toxic, they're drama. I don't have time for that. I lived in that world in addiction. If you're not spreading positive and good vibes, I don't want anything to do with you. It's as simple as that.
Beautiful. Well, since you're on the Generosity Show, I want to ask you, you know, what is either the most generous thing someone's done for you or a very generous thing someone's done for you lately?
Wow, that's a crazy.
I know you do a lot of generous things for people, but I know that there's people that are doing good things for you too, I believe, I'm sure.
You know, it's not like I look for the things. When I get a message that someone says, hey, you know, I read your book, and we'll give 10 of these away to your viewers too. I'll sign them and send them out.
Yeah.
You kind of stumped me because I'm the guy always giving. I don't know. I don't.
You know what's funny is I've told all my other guests this question in advance, but like someone had told me, well, I don't know if you should tell them in advance. So I didn't for you. And maybe
you threw me for a loop. But you know what? Like, there's a magazine out there called Real Leaders Magazine, and Julie, who runs it, it goes to 25,000 of the top CEOs in the world. And last year, she had me in that magazine as one of the top 100 visionary thought leaders in the world. And she just sent me a thing, and they're running another thing, and it doesn't come out till January. But she said, you are one of the 6 unknown heroes that we're spotlighting. And things like that, to me, you know, 5 years ago today, I was still in prison, and in the miracles, and on my shelf, I've got all these cool little awards and trinkets. And man, I just want to be the best husband I can, the best father I can, the best son, and give people the proper guidance and direction. I don't need anything. I've got everything. But I do have some very caring people out there, and I'm more of the giver than the getter. I don't know.
Well, hey, that's why I show said giving and receiving.
Yeah.
But you know what? You did answer my question. Being featured in that magazine was an honor to you because you worked so hard for what you're doing, and to feel recognition, then, you know, that's great.
You know, I just did where I live in Naperville, Illinois. It's probably 180,000 people, and we're 30 miles west of Chicago, and it's rated one of the top towns in the country to raise a family. And earlier this week, the local television station had me and I brought my son with me, Max, my 20-year-old, to highlight our foundation and what we do. And the majority of the interview focused on Max. And boy, that kid makes me so proud. He's my best friend in the world, and being able to give back and see what my son's doing today. And this is a kid that 5 years ago didn't want anything to do with me. And those are the things I care about. You know, it's about other people. It's not about me. I've got everything I need. And, you know, there's food on the table, roof over my head, clothes on the back. I'm able to go get my daughter a car, and my son's got a nice car. And I don't know. It's just simple things that I struggled for or took advantage of just to be able to give back a little. You know, it's crazy. When I had went to another company, my son and I went to the car dealer, and I said, pick out whatever car you think we should have. And he picked out this Yukon SUV thing, and I said, all right, we'll get it. And I took a picture of it, and some lady's like, oh, you must make a lot of money. Must be nice making money off people's backs. It's like, we've put 45,000 miles on the truck in a year. I need a reliable vehicle. I like to travel and comfort, but I busted my ass to get that. And unfriend, block. It's just amazing how people get out of yourself. And I watch the people that complain a lot. They don't do anything. They don't give back. And
what are you doing instead of sitting here complaining? I agree.
Exactly. The amount of funerals we've paid for, the people we've scholarshiped into treatment, or the 400 plus people we've paid to get into Oaks Recovery on the road to recovery. What people don't know, for 3 years, all my speaking event fees I put into my foundation. I gave every dollar away. I still don't take a salary. We have no employees. But then my accountant and lawyer said, Tim, look, you got to quit giving all your money away. You still rent a 3-bedroom house. You got all these kids. You got to pay yourself. And one of my things was, I didn't feel I earned it. I didn't feel I deserved it. And yeah, I do. I have a right to make a living, and I do everything on the up and up. But there's a lot of this treatment industry is one of the sickest industries I've ever worked in. It really is. But I don't know. I love what I do today. This isn't a job. I get up. I don't go, oh God, I love what I do today. And we're working on another book, and talks about another maybe TV series and a movie. And I got neat things happening in my life.
Well, I love what you're doing. And, you know, coming from nonprofit background, I've done a lot of research and put a lot of thought into my feelings regarding, you know, ratios of how much, you know, nonprofits give percentage wise, you know, and I've come to the conclusion that I feel like a 60 or 70%, or even at the beginning, especially because people want to say, like, they're so proud, like, we give 80%, we give 90% of all of our donations to beneficiaries. Well, guess what? That's great. How many people did you serve this year? Okay,
right.
You served 50 people. Great. Well, what if you actually gave 50% of the donations to beneficiaries and 50% to bring on really good people, and you were able to help 10,000 people this year?
Bingo.
So that's really where my head's at, is like, it doesn't, I don't think that should matter, because there's CEOs that are running foundations that maybe they make $250,000. That's pretty much the max for a nonprofit executive, where someone won't be looking at you like you're just doing wrong, right? It's immoral. But that making $5 million if they're working for a corporation. So I think we need to change our perspective on, you know, how we think about, you know, donations and how nonprofits run as well.
Well, the problem is everybody thinks treatment should be for free. And, you know, my treatment center in Florida, if you pay cash, it's $25,000. But I'll put my clinical team and our master level clinicians up against every treatment center out there. But I've got other places everybody doesn't have insurance, and I want to help, but I'll have people that just think, well, I need a scholarship. We scholarship a lot of people to my center, but it's like my transmission goes out. Can I call my mechanic and say, hey, I need a new $6,000 transmission. Would you scholarship that for me? Hey, I need a new roof on my house. Would you scholarship that? I need to get some implants. Can you scholarship those? They look at you like you got fucking horns growing out of your head. But everybody thinks treatment should be for free. No, you need to pay good people to work there. I don't know. It's just bitch at the government, bitch at Obamacare, all these other things. You know, Obamacare came out and people thought they were buying good insurance policies and then paying $300 or $400 or $500 a month. What they didn't realize is they had a $25,000 copay. They couldn't afford to get into treatment. They were misled. They were lied to. But anyhow, I could go on.
Me too. I could talk to you for 3 hours. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you're ever in LA, where are you based at?
I'm based out of Chicago. I'll be out in LA probably in 3-4 weeks. I'm out there every couple months.
I would love to meet you. And
we absolutely will. And so you get a list. Here's my book, From Dope to Hope. You can get it on Amazon, but get a list of 10 of your listeners or viewers. Message me their name and their address, and I'll sign a copy of the book and ship them all out to them on Monday. We'll give 10 away.
You are so generous, Tim. Thank you.
And I'll get you and your husband one too.
Great.
And you know,
by the way, and as well as my grandma's watching too. So
hi, Grandma.
I just have to give a shout out to Grandma. This is my dog Coco. She's named after my grandma Coco. So
awesome. Well, it's been an honor.
It's been an honor. I'd like to end with you. If there's anyone that's struggling with addiction, what you know, what can you tell them right now? I'd like to end with that.
Put your hand up and ask for help. If you have a family member, loved one, don't worry about the shame, guilt. What are people going to think? Call me, reach out to me. I mean, message me on Facebook, Tim Ryan from Dope to Hope, on Twitter, A Man in Recovery, Instagram from Dope to Hope, or go to timryanspeaks.com or amirf.org. You can find me. We will help. We answer the calls, but don't think, oh, it's going to get better. When people put their hand up, you got 12 to 24 hours before they go use again. And nobody grows up and says, hey, you know what? I want to be an alcoholic. Is that what you grew up saying, Jennifer? I want to be an alcoholic. No, I didn't grow up. I want to be a professional water skier and a stuntman. If they got a heartbeat, they got hope. Don't give up on anybody.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Tim. You're awesome. It was
Jennifer,
awesome.
you rock.
You rock too. I can't wait to meet you.
We'll see you soon, okay, my friend?
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you got a little bit of inspiration. Tim is doing some great work. If you want to donate to his nonprofit, it's called A Man in Recovery Foundation. If you are struggling with addiction or anything, please reach out to Tim or myself. There are people here to support you, and everyone goes through challenges, and we're all in this together. So I love you all, and I encourage you to get out and get generous. All right. Talk to you soon. See you next week.